Final Boy Status is a podcast about scary movies and the stuff that happens in them. The entire horror genre is generally frightening and disturbing, so if you're a kid, be sure to ask your parents if it's okay for you to listen. Or don't. You'd probably be cooler if you didn't ask for their permission. But then again, I won't tell you how to live your life. Also, we will be discussing spoilers during this podcast, so don't say we didn't warn you.
Alright everyone, thank you for tuning in to our podcast, Final Boy Status. This is today's host, Adam Bone. I'm here with Lanson and Luke.
Hello.
And we're just so psyched to be here.
Yeah.
This is a new podcast. This is our first episode we're trying out here.
Can I ask, the other podcast that you've hosted, you did the same thing where you said, thanks for tuning in. Podcasts aren't really, there's not a lot of tuning involved with podcasts. It's just sort of pressing buttons.
Maybe you got to tune like the computer or whatever volume you have.
Adam, do you think this is a radio show? Do you think we're on the radio?
Are we not on the radio?
I thought people could get in their car and press a button and this would be playing, yes.
Technically, yes, they could.
I guess they could, so why the fetch not?
So I guess we're all on the same
then
page.
What's the fetching problem?
You're right. I shouldn't have argued. You're right.
Well, before any more confusion ensues, I'd love to talk a little bit about what this show is. I mean, we're here and we're reviewing horror movies from back in the day and recent ones as time goes on, but we kind of want to do it in a very specific way, right? We kind of want to look at surviving the horror movie instead of just like, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll give a general kind of critique and go over a little bit, but we're going to try to see.
This is the podcast for anybody who's ever watched a horror movie and gone, these idiots, this is so easy to get out of. I could have handled this. We are going to be you. We are going to look at horror movies and we're going to decide whether or not the average Joe could survive them. Because us three are as average as it gets.
We are the average
for real.
Joes and all average Joes.
We the 5'11 gang.
I'm so vanilla. That's it. That's the sentence.
Oh, I was waiting for it. I'm so vanilla, you'd have to extract
I'm
me.
so vanilla.
Sometimes
the
you don't
only
need a punchline.
Yeah, you're
I'm
right.
so vanilla. The only way I could get more white is if people called me Vanilla Ice. But luckily, no one's called me that yet.
Yet.
It comes for us all.
One day, maybe in your 40s, it will happen.
One day I will suffer.
Well, the show we're doing today is the 1997 classic I Know What You Did Last Summer. First time I watched it. I think it was the first time for Lanson too.
Yeah, I watched. This was the first time I laid eyes on it.
I had seen it.
Oh, very nice.
I had seen it.
Well, if you haven't watched the movie, I mean, we're gonna be obviously spoiling it, so give it a watch if you want to follow along. Give your thoughts. To yourself, I guess. Out
Spoiler
to the
alert.
Universe.
Would you fellows like some general background on
That'd
the
be
film?
great, actually.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
So obviously, we know the title of the movie is "I Know What You Did Last Summer," which is one of the lengthiest titles I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Really wordy.
Really wordy.
I mean, I get why they called it that, but it is a mouthful.
I feel like you could have also just called it like Last Summer. Although I guess that doesn't sound like a horror movie so much as it sounds like a really nice like teen comedy. Like Last Summer.
I can still recall.
Can you imagine though if they had like marketed this movie like a teen comedy called Last Summer?
Oh my gosh.
It would have been awesome to go into theaters.
Going into the movie expecting a teen comedy and then that hard left turn in the first act, that would have been incredible. Like none of the marketing showed that was coming. That would have been amazing. Right. So Adam said that it was released in 1997. It was directed by the Scottish director Jim Gillespie. It's one of the few movies he's done. He hasn't done a lot. Yeah. And the writer was, of course, Kevin Williamson, known for also writing the Scream franchise. Movie stars Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Ryan... Is it Philippe?
Yeah, I don't know.
Philippi?
P's and an
Let's
E,
say
I'm not
Philippe.
sure.
I
Ryan
don't know.
Philippe. Ryan Philippe is his name.
If not, you're gonna have to come on this podcast and correct us.
You're gonna have
Yeah,
to come on this
reach out.
podcast and fight Lanson.
I'm ready, dude. I can throw hands.
In the Jello pool we have in the corner.
In the Jello pool, he's gonna throw hands and hooks.
Oh.
Oh man. And yeah, so obviously, like, the premise of this movie is kind of famous. It is based off of a book by the same name. I forgot who wrote the book.
Ooh, what
not
was it?
Kevin Williamson.
It was in the credits.
Lewis
It was in the credits.
Lois
Duncan.
Duncan.
Oh, you were correct.
Lois Duncan.
Lois Duncan.
Lois Duncan. Excuse me.
And yeah, the basic plot of the movie is 4 teenagers are out partying on the 4th of July. They get a little bit drunk. They get a little bit tipsy. And they end up running a guy over with their car. And then they try to cover up his death. And then the next summer, somebody emerges giving them notes saying, "I know what you did last summer," and starts stalking them and hunting them down and killing them. That's like the basic premise of the movie. So I guess the book was more or less the same, except the author was like really staunchly against like violence and
What, really?
like slasher movies. So her books were actually more of a mystery type theme, and none of the 4 teenagers in the book died.
Oh,
Really?
well, there you go.
Although she had no problem with them running somebody over in a drunk driving accident. Like
That's fine.
Well, hey, I mean, we've all been there, right? Right?
Relatable
Right,
to
guys?
every
Please
reader.
give me some comfort in this moment.
Lanson's getting weirdly threatening about this.
We take this to our grave. To our grave.
To our grave. Ryan Philippe really really flexing his acting muscles here.
Oh, for sure.
choking Jennifer over the car and her
know.
boyfriend doing nothing. It was pretty intense.
Hey, take it easy,
Hey.
man.
Freddie Prinze Jr. is a very handsome human being, and he is like a good actor, but in some of his early movies, it seems like the director's direction was just, "Freddie, look, you're here because you just look handsome. That's the only reason we hired you."
Look pretty, buddy.
He seems to have that old school, like, stupid face, too. You know, almost like an older, forgive me, like, Keanu Reeves old and, like, David Schwimmer a little bit, where you just have the stupid face.
Man, we got some people on our hit list. Again, you're going to have to come on this show and fight.
Please retract Keanu Reeves' name, because I don't want to fight him.
Yeah, well, you would
Dude,
lose. That's true.
I
Shouldn't
mean,
have
his
evoked
jiu-jitsu
that
game
power.
is strong.
It is.
Oh man, he's been really going to town in that jazzercise class. That guy's so jacked.
As everybody knows, for the John Wick movies,
You've seen the John Wick movies.
you know.
Oh man, but no, yeah, Freddie Prinze Jr. He kind of the material isn't great for him. He doesn't really get the chance to flex a whole lot of acting chops. But
Stunt
yeah,
chops,
early on in the movie, somebody chokes his girlfriend, and he's just like doing handsome face. Hey, calm down.
Let's stay calm, guys, okay?
I'm doing handsome face like I'm in the movie Zoolander. Just so the
Ooh.
audience at home knows what my approximation of handsome face is.
It's pretty approximate.
Good.
Take that as you will.
It looks nothing like Zoolander, is what Adam's saying. There you go. There's some general background on the movie. That's what it's all about.
Very nice.
What did we like? I don't. What were some of the opinions of the film? What did we think about it?
Yeah. Pretty good. I thought it was a decent late 90s teenage slasher flick, you know.
I hear ya. And I think just like at a glance, just I don't know, not really taking in the context of the time, it was very. I'm trying to think of a word. I want to say mediocre, but like 1 inch above that, where most of it is pretty mediocre. I mean, yeah, the writing's good for what it is, and the acting is passable. Everything was just very passable. There were a few moments that I thought were very good and stood out a lot. We were talking about the chase scene with the one chick,
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
yeah.
her. That was a
Gellar.
very, very intense, very long sequence that was surprising. But everything else to me was very, I don't know, it was very average.
Yeah,
like you said, it didn't really challenge anything. But again, it wasn't bad.
Oh yeah, there's some like really interesting like artistic moments in it. So there's like touches of genius in there. There's some really good shots. I mean, Elsa's death, like that's a very artistic moment to see the reflection in her glasses, and then the slash with the blood splatter is all like really well done and a very interesting visual. But like I said, there's just moments of interesting.
And I guess I mean it didn't really need to be that. It was simply just, you know,
Yeah.
the 1997 slasher. I don't know. So
You
it
got what
didn't
you paid
have to
for.
be artistic,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So what we do, we're gonna rate the movie, because it's a spoopy movie, and all of our movies will be spoopy movies, out of 13.
Did we clarify before that all of the movies done on this podcast will be
Actually,
spoopy?
no.
Because if not, it would be really funny to imagine we're like, could you survive Love Actually?
I don't know if I can take the heartbreak. I don't know.
There's only one way out of Bride Wars.
Can you survive Sleepless in Seattle?
I don't know, dude. I don't know if I can do that. Tom Hanks is a trooper in that movie.
Trooper.
Yeah,
That's a
single
different
dad.
podcast. This is
That's our other
scary.
podcast.
Yeah.
Let's fit in a plug for that right now. Our other podcast.
Rom-com survivor
Rom-com
status.
survivor status.
Yeah, coming soon at some point.
Be on the edge of your seat.
Get ready, boys. Okay, so we're
Out of 13.
Out of 13.
Out
The
of 13.
spoopiness out of 13. I personally...
Wait, are we rating like scariness or like the movie as a whole? Sorry, this was unclear to me beforehand.
No,
Let's
you're good.
do as a whole, I think. I mean, if you want to...
Movie
Say
as a whole,
scariness,
and
too.
then we do an additional rating for scariness.
Sure.
Why
Yeah.
not?
Okay.
Why not?
Yeah.
Welcome, audience. You're figuring out the podcast as we are.
Hey,
rolling
we're
with
just
the
having a good time.
Yeah, I know.
We got the structure.
I guess overall I would give it like out of 13. I'd give it probably a 7.5
Okay.
out of 13, and then for
Okay.
spoopiness, like a 5. Yeah, for me
Not-
personally.
Yeah, I get that.
So yeah, that's my take.
I was expecting you to go super low as on the movie as a whole. I was preparing to be like, Lanson, why are you giving it like a 3? Like, it's pretty good. I don't know why in my head you were going to be like a curmudgeon about it.
What can I say? I'm usually a curmudgeon. I mean, they don't make movies like they used to back in 1977, 1997. See, it's 20 years later. Anyway, I'm going to put that back in the box.
I love how in my head you were going to be stingy like Scrooge about it. Like, you're going to be like, no, you got to earn this rating.
You must earn my love.
I would put it. I'd actually go a little lower than you, which is surprising. I'd probably put it in the 6.5, 7 range.
Okay.
So like, really enjoyable, but it's definitely not pushing anything. Spoopy status. I think 5 hits it on the head. There's a couple moments that kind of got me, but overall, like everything is pretty clear, like what's going to happen. So there isn't much to like. So you know, it's an older style of horror where it's more about like putting you on the edge of your seat than it is making you like jump.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're not necessarily on the edge of your seat because it's kind of like, well, I think I know how this is gonna play out.
I'm pretty unanimous there. I was thinking 7 because it was just incredibly mediocre, except for the couple moments it wasn't. So a little over half. I mean, spoopiness, like I would say maybe 2 or 3. I think
Oh.
there was one moment at the end of the chick's chase scene. I can't remember her name.
Sure, Michelle
Sarah Michelle
Gellar.
Gellar.
I'll just have you guys say it every
It's
time.
okay, Adam. It's not like she's famous.
I
Where
mean,
I was
like,
literally-
she's also welcome to come on the podcast.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
defend
Come
herself.
correct me.
Anytime. I
Get it
mean,
drilled in
the
my
challenge
head.
is out
Sarah
there.
Michelle Gellar, please come beat up Adam. I don't want this to come across as sexual, but I want to watch you beat up Adam.
I mean, hey, I'll even provide the brass knuckles. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
Anyway, you'll get brass knuckles too. It'll be a fair fight. Somewhat. I don't know.
Look, if Sarah asks me to help, I'm not saying I'm going to beat you up, but I would probably take her side.
Yeah.
well, you got to do it for the guest. I mean, when you have a famous
we're
famous
just
guest,
we're just being polite.
I'll take the hit. I'll take the hit for the numbers.
You got to take some cuts, boy.
The
Yep.
best part about this is how petty we're imagining Sarah Michelle Gellar is.
Oh, I know, right?
That she hears about some guy forgot my name on a podcast. Time
Here
to
I
teach
come.
him a thing or two about the U.S.
Wow.
Constitution.
Here I come. The end of that scene, the chase scene, I felt myself caring that she die or not, and that's I don't
Yeah.
know. You don't feel that all the time with these kind of movies, so I
Well, and it's
Yeah.
mostly because like the end of her chase scene is kind of it's a little cheap. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to like totally knock the movie because we know she has to die because it's that kind of movie.
Yeah.
But
just
like
gotta know.
she dies because she stupidly stops to like turn around and check and see if the killer's behind her.
Yeah, after
It's-
she's been dodging him in a couple moments pretty smartly.
It's a little bit like contrived. It's a little bit of like the writer put that in because why not? Or the director put that in because
sure,
why not?
whatever, yeah.
And she does it twice too for like really long moments of time where it's like, if I were in that situation, I'd just be booking it. And she gets so close too.
I know.
So it's just like just that frustrating moment of like, oh, for real? Like you're going to have her do this because nobody would actually do that.
I know. I feel like everybody in this movie had this. I don't know if like the hearing was turned down on everybody, but there was always just, what's that over there? Oh, sick. Let me go back to the thing I was just looking at.
Yeah. The guy's move was make them look behind them, and then when they turn around, be in front of them.
The equivalent of, when you're in junior high and somebody taps you on the shoulder and is on the other side rather than the side you tapped him on.
To be fair, if he used that tactic,
I don't know,
probably
man.
just as effective with these characters.
It felt like everybody was moving at half speed in the show, and we were talking about it. We're like, he's not even at superhuman speed. He's just like at
Normal
regular,
speed,
average
everyone
human
else
speed.
is just down.
Yeah, we were getting so frustrated with the characters because we're like, why are you so slow?
What are you doing?
You understand what's at stake, right? Your lives.
He's got a fish hook, for heaven's sakes.
The most threatening of hooks.
We'll actually get into that right now. I mean, in order for us to know if we'll, like, survive a movie, we need to talk about the killer, kind of profile him a little bit. Like, who is he? What kind of kills does he make? What does that say about him?
What's his MO?
I mean, he's a dude in a... What is the coat
A
called?
slicker?
A slicker, yeah.
Slicker.
Kind of looks like David Dunn from
Slicker,
Unbreakable a little
I
bit.
barely know her.
Oh, frick it.
All right, guys, this is my
Wow.
last episode of the podcast. I hope everybody's doing well.
Oh, man.
He's got a fish hook. Just go back to this thought.
Oh, and don't forget the hat, because a big deal
And the
is
hat.
made about the hat.
Yeah,
Because there's like the scene where she sees
red
it in her
herrings.
back seat, and then she sees it on the boat, and she's like, a hat.
A fisherman's hat on a fisherman's boat. Oh,
Terrifying.
Not the most scariest outfit, I've got to say.
Yeah,
I mean,
In a way, though, that's like sort of effective. Because I do think one of the more interesting moments in the movie is when Sarah Michelle Gellar is on the float, and she sees all the people in the crowd wearing like the slicker, and she's suspicious of all of them. And like we were making jokes about it during the movie, where we're like, "It's him, it's him, it's him," but also like.
Yeah.
That is like really effective
It
when your
could be.
costume helps you hide in plain sight. It's not like Mikey Myers where it's like, well, that's obviously him. Like, so like, yeah, I think that's actually kind of smart. The fact that it's really simplistic and anybody could be wearing it, because it sort of adds to the mysterious element of what the movie is trying to be, which is like it's a mystery. It's
yeah.
it kind of has that DNA with Scream, where it is a slasher, but it's a slasher with a serious whodunit going on as well. And like both movies are very interested in helping you be and making you suspicious of kind of everyone. And I think this movie was really smart in using that costume for the killer, because there's so many moments where you see somebody in a slicker and you're like, oh, that could be them. So it adds to the suspicion. So I think,
Fair.
it is a little generic,
Fair
but that
point,
sort
yeah.
of adds to like the whodunitness.
Yeah. It's my only thing is it's just there are some scenes where like the killer goes into like various people's homes and it's like him dressed up as the guy from Long John Silver's and you're like, oh no, he's coming for the fish fry.
When he sneaks into Sarah Michelle Gellar's
Exactly.
house.
Yeah, exactly.
It is really, it does look out of place in scenes like that, and that's kind of funny.
Yeah, well, there's some times where he kills somebody and it's only them who see him. Like, why put on the getup, you know? Like, especially in those times where you'd look a lot weirder if you wore it. Does he just wear it all the time? I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, apparently not, because he's not wearing it at the end. Spoiler, he's not wearing it at the end.
Yeah.
I know, all that time, and then he's like, I'm just gonna be in street clothes.
Just me and my trucker cap.
Still had the hook, but yeah.
But hey, everything else.
It was important. He had no other means of killing people.
Yeah.
There's no other way it could be done.
That's another thing. He only uses the hook pretty much for every kill.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really, I mean, I feel like that's pretty limited as far as...
It's cool and it's interesting for him to have a gimmick.
Yeah.
But it is frustrating that we don't see any creativity from him. And it's extra frustrating, too, because we see, like, he freaking runs over Ryan Phillippe.
That's
Philippe.
true.
Philippe.
Philippe,
He
yeah.
friggin' runs
Philippe.
over Ryan Philippe with his own car, and Adam goes, "Oh, he's dead." And spoiler alert, he was not. The fisherman had to double back and gut him with the fish hook, and it's like, oh man, like I don't know. I would have liked a little more variety in the kills, like, you know, like kill somebody by running them over with a car. Like,
Yeah.
you got hit by a car, like bring that back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense to the trauma that he's been through.
You're not limited, man, is what we're saying. Get versatile.
Lending itself to the conversation of survival, I mean, it does limit the creativity, but also if we're surviving it, it makes it a little bit better knowing there's one thing that he's going to kill us with, you know?
Yeah.
I guess the characters probably should catch on that pretty quick, and I feel like if you're, you know, just out of arm's reach, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally saw that in the chase scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar. There's
Yeah.
several moments where she's fine just because she like takes one step back.
Takes a step.
Oop,
out of the way.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of easy to identify like some of the weaknesses with this killer in terms of like, if you move at normal human speed, you will move just as fast as him.
Yeah.
So imagine if you run away from him and don't do something stupid like turn around and see if he's behind you.
Yeah.
I also have to say, like, it's actually fairly easy for them to figure out his identity. They're just stupid and they put it off for a year for no reason.
Right, yeah.
Like, when it all actually comes together, like, Jennifer Love Hewitt figures it out in what, like an hour?
Yeah.
She figures
that's
out.
it.
Just makes
Yeah.
some pretty far out connections that end up being correct, but
Yeah. So, like real spoiler breakdown of the plot, like, right now. Like, the movie opens on this guy sitting on a cliff. Guy's name is David Egan. We're led to believe that he's the guy the kids hit with the car, because his body is found, like, in the ocean later. Turns out David Egan had a car accident where he accidentally killed his wife, Susan. Susan's father, Ben Willis, tracked David down and killed him by tossing him off the cliff, ?
I think so.
Never established.
yeah.
But then Ben Willis is the one they hit with the car, but he survives when they dump him in the ocean, and he comes back a year later to get them. Unclear why he waited a year.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah, what's his thing? I mean, there's obviously the thing with the 4th of July, but I guess
Jennifer Love Hewitt and Ryan Philippe were away at school. So I guess they didn't even come back until the next summer.
right.
So I guess that could be it.
But what if they never came back at all?
Have to track him down at college.
Oh man, now I gotta go find their dorm room, and it's just gonna be awkward.
It's gonna
Have
be
to
a
figure
road
out
trip
where the
movie at
dorm
that
showers
point.
are. Is he riding a bicycle in that? In your pantomime?
Road trip and bicycle.
Leslie was pantomiming a road trip, but it looked like he was on like a bicycle.
Hey
A
man,
really old-fashioned one too.
I'm feeling like he probably blew the bank on the boat that he had, so he probably has to like make do in budget cuts, and so he'd probably ride a bike in his slicker and fisherman costume.
I guess he couldn't sail to Boston.
There are no oceans to Boston, Luke. What? What are you on?
And yeah, well, that's
But
yeah.
Jennifer Love Hewitt figures out in like an hour, and it's and like not even putting aside the fact that they definitely should have gone to the cops when they hit him. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I get the logic and I get why they're scared, and I find the fear believable enough that maybe they would just try to cover up the fact that they hit him with the car. But at the same time, it's like there's a lot of ways this could have ended differently. You know, like there's a lot of ways they could have pretty easily beat the killer, especially, you know, if they had talked with David Egan's sister, Anne Heche. If they had talked to her for like 10 more minutes, apparently they could have figured out the whole Ben Willis reveal like 3 days earlier than they did.
right.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. A couple key decisions were different. Yeah, it'd be a very different movie. It's hard to, because a lot of what happened to them initially was, you know, one of the guys was drunk. They were all very erratic. It's hard to say what you would act like in that situation if you run over a person. This is a part of the film I actually liked a lot, where they kind of, I mean, they didn't really lean into it like hard, like it didn't become just this hardcore drama or whatever, but they kind of played around with like what they kill the guy, and the emotional impact that comes with it, like what maybe you would just want to forget about it and try and not look into the family members, the name. You just want to go to college because you're a kid and you want to be innocent, So I think that's got to be taken into effect if you're thinking about surviving the movie. What their age is, what happened, the intoxication part of it.
There's a lot to break down, and that's something where the movie is really strong in that, like, there's really strong writing in that scene where they're trying to figure out what to do in the aftermath of hitting the guy.
Right, I liked that scene actually a lot.
I think every character is kind of nailing it, where Jennifer Love Hewitt is the voice of reason. Sarah Michelle Gellar is just so erratic and so, like, just doesn't know what to do. Freddie Prinze Jr. is obviously in shock, so, like, even though Adam claims Freddie Prinze Jr. has a stupid face, which I don't fully agree with, like, his sort of, like, handsome guy acting that he really fell victim to in this movie really paid off in that scene, because it comes across like he's in shock and he's not really processing it.
That's
and then
fair.
Ryan Philippe is just he loses his mind in every scene of this movie, but
He's just intense.
he's
That guy
very
could have.
intense.
I feel like besides this instance in which he was involved in running over somebody, he probably could have straight up just killed somebody later on in his life.
He did. He threatened to kill Max.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about
He's like,
that.
hey, listen up. I have no problem murdering you. And it's like, whoa.
I know, go straight up Sopranos on this guy.
Are we sure the fisherman is the bad guy here?
I don't know. Ben Willis might not be that bad of a guy.
But I would argue that another strong point of the movie is actually sort of, I wish it dived into it deeper, but there's almost an exploration of trauma. And we've talked about like how all great horror movies sort of have an underlying metaphor to them. And for me, the underlying metaphor of this movie is trauma and like how it affects your relationships, where these four people experience this thing together, and then we come back and we see them a year later, where before they had been the best of friends, now they can't even like look at each other. No. And there's a couple scenes alluding to that, like the scenes with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt, where she's saying like, we can't be together, like I can't be around you after what happened.
Yeah.
Or Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jennifer Love Hewitt, where Sarah Michelle Gellar's like, what happened to us? Like, we were best friends, now we barely speak. And even like tying into the end of the movie, where Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt are only able to move past the trauma because they rely on each other, they support each other, and they work through the trauma together. Mm-hmm. I'm referring more to the scene after the boat where they're like hugging and making up, as opposed to the scene on the boat where Jennifer Love Hewitt basically just got Freddie Prinze Jr. killed.
Yeah, I know.
Like 3 different times.
Just let the boy be.
We were I feel okay with Adam like making fun of Freddie Prinze Jr. a little bit, because FPJ is the hero of the movie.
He's great.
He is.
He's amazing.
He turns into fetching superhero at the end.
Oh, he doesn't have much to do in the first 2 acts, other than that great scene where they're arguing what to do. But then in the 3rd act, he comes out swinging, and it's fantastic.
Dude, I know, like that year on the boats taught him many a thing.
How to fight, fisherman, man.
How to fight, how to climb some rope, how to sail on a boat.
Well, that's another part of the movie that I would point out as being very strong, where it's like, it very much has sort of a through line there of the characters are all like, here's what our lives are going to be, and then we catch up with them a year later and their lives are nothing like what they thought they would be.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like that, and I liked that because that is real life. At the end of high school, you're like, well, now's the time to map out my life. What is my life going to be? Versus a year later where you're like, guess I'm figuring this out as I go.
Yeah, trauma set aside, I think anybody watching that can relate to the fact that they were all in relationships, even though some of them were mended. It's like everything just kind of doesn't go the way as planned.
Yeah.
You don't become the person you are. That's a good point. I like that.
Oh, and I should point out that if you have trauma in your life, like finding somebody with that shared trauma and working it through it together is not the only way to get through it.
For sure.
But you do need somebody in your life that will help you work through the trauma. Yeah. And Jennifer Love Hewitt and FPJ don't have that at all until the end of the movie, when they come together and they become that for one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're trauma survivor, watch I Know What You Did Last Summer, Don't go to therapy.
I don't know about that encouragement. What if they're traumatized by a fisherman? What if they're traumatized by Freddie Prinze Jr.'s dumb face?
Well, I
Can't
made it
watch
through.
it.
Okay, all right. That was the trauma. Well, now we're hitting a cool segment where we have some trivia from Luke. I'm excited for
man.
this.
So yeah, I like researching movies. It's kind of fun for me. So like I said, this movie was written by Kevin Williamson, and it has connections to several other Kevin Williamson projects. So this is a little bit muddled, and it's hard to tell exactly what went down with this. So I'm going to give you my best approximation of the backstory of this movie, and hopefully it's more or less correct. But it seems that a producer approached Kevin Williamson and gave him the book, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and said this could be adapted into a slasher film. Like I said, the book was written as a more straightforward mystery book and really leaned away from violence and gore and things of that nature. But somebody brought the book to Williamson and said, I think there's a great potential for a horror movie here. And he agreed. He adapted it. As far as I can tell, he wrote this one before he wrote Scream. But nobody was particularly interested in this script because, I mean, all of our accusations kind of stand out. Like, it's a little bit mediocre, and it would have a hard time standing out, I think, when you look at the movies being made. It wasn't until Kevin Williamson kind of took his frustration with not being able to sell the script and channeled it into a parody of the slasher genre in Scream that, ironically, he was able to get this movie made. Because obviously after Scream came out and became like the genre-defining success that it was, everybody wanted to make a movie like Scream, and everybody wanted a script from Kevin Williamson. So, on the backside of that, he gets this movie made a year later. Funny enough, Scream 2 was actually also released the same year, 1997, and Kevin Williamson also wrote that.
I didn't know that.
So another thing we can look into here is early on in the movie, they go to Dawson's Beach. They say they're at the 4th of July party, and our 4 protagonists split off to go to Dawson's Beach. That is actually a reference to Dawson's Creek, which was created by Kevin Williamson. So another tie into his project.
A little Easter egg there.
A little bit right there. 1997, besides being a great year for Kevin Williamson between Dawson's Creek and Scream 2 and, of course, I Know What You Did Last Summer, was also a very noteworthy year for Sarah Michelle Gellar, because she had 3 of her breakout roles all happen that year. Because she was in this movie, obviously, as her character in this. And then she also apparently got in good with Kevin Williamson because she was in Scream 2 as well as Cece. I believe it's Cece, at least. And then the kicker, the role she would end up becoming best known for, Buffy the Vampire Slayer debuted in 1997. Oh, so boom, back to back, she had some of the biggest roles of her career happen over this summer.
Good for her.
Yeah, I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's awesome. I think this movie is also why her hair is shorter in Buffy Season 2 than it is in Season 1. Because obviously, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, they cut her hair. And I feel like they didn't really do anything that bad to it. Probably the only reason it wasn't like a total hack job, like she'd have to shave her head and start over kind of haircut, was because she had contractual obligations to Buffy. And maybe Scream 2? I don't know what the order of that exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the last thing about this movie is there's a surprising amount of it that came about in reshoots. So a big thing that was interesting about this movie in terms of Jim Gillespie's vision is he actually wanted a fairly bloodless slasher movie. The author of the book, Lois, whatever her name was, we said it earlier.
Duncan.
What?
Duncan?
Yes,
Okay.
Lois Duncan was very opposed to this being adapted into a slasher film because, like I said, she was very opposed to violence. Jim Gillespie kind of heard that and wanted to be somewhat true to that, so he had to keep in all the deaths, but he decided to shoot them with no blood. So his cut of the movie had no blood, no significantly gross out moments in it whatsoever.
Really?
But the studio and producers balked, and they insisted that the movie be a little bit bloodier. So the first bridge that got burned in that area, no, not burned. The first major time Jim Gillespie like gave up on his vision of no blood was during the scene with Elsa's death, where of course she gets slashed across the throat and blood splatters on the window. The producer came in and basically told him, look, this is medically impossible that he slashes her neck right here and we don't see any blood. So I'm going to make you put in some blood. So they went ahead and did that. And then, of course, they did some test screenings and they just decided that there needed to be a little bit more in the movie. So they added in the shot of him dragging Elsa's body, which is a very disturbing moment.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And then they went a step further where they decided they needed to establish danger earlier in the movie. So they actually added a death. The first death in the movie is Max,
Yeah.
played by Johnny Galecki?
Yep.
Johnny Galecki.
That's it.
Wow, you got it.
For a
guy
second
from
there,
The
I was
Big
like,
Bang
I'm not
Theory.
going to figure it out.
Big Bang
Yeah.
Theory guy.
So he had just come off Roseanne, but he was not on Big Bang Theory yet, obviously.
Yeah.
So this was a nice like middle ground for him, I hope. But yeah, originally he did not die. The last time we saw him was when he got threatened at the docks by Barry, like a crazy person.
Yeah.
So they went ahead and added in his death afterwards, and I think that's why, like in terms of effects, his death is probably the most graphic. Like he's the guy that gets the hook through the jaw.
Yeah. I that stood out to me for sure.
I know.
Yeah, it was real nasty. And there we go. There's some trivia on the movie. I can also mention that it was the first leading role for Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. respectively. So this basically kickstarted their careers. Sarah Michelle Gellar probably would have been fine without this movie, but hey, you know
She
what?
did it, and she did
Made
great.
made it a real good year for her that year.
Yeah.
The interesting thing to say about Ryan Philippe is that his character, obviously, like a big thing is that he's supposed to be like the football quarterback type. He's supposed to be playing football at a college, but of course he's kind of small. He's kind of a smaller guy.
Yeah.
And originally, like, they weren't that interested in him for the part because they were looking for somebody much bigger. And when they kind of said that to him, apparently then he tried it again with like the intense energy that he had in the movie, and the director was just really taken by it. He's like, you know, that guy is scary no matter what his size is, so I think that's our guy. So you pour enough cruel intentions into your character, and you get to be in the movie.
Just act big.
Hey, yeah, it worked. I mean, I remember thinking it was like he's a little scrawny for football, but that was it. That was the end of the thought. I
They
believe it
probably
after
could have
that.
done themselves a favor and not put him in a wife beater for
The
half of
entire
the scenes.
movie,
Gosh,
pretty
I know.
much.
If they had put him in like regular clothes, I wouldn't have noticed how small he is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, lean into it. I respect that.
If it got it, flaunt it, I guess.
Well, I guess part of figuring out if we survive,
You got it?
Yes.
we profiled the killer, and we've kind of already done this, but we can kind of recap and any additional thoughts we have on the victims,
Yeah.
profiling them, how they did, and how we would do compared to them. I mean, I would say just jumping to the first scene where there's significant conflict when they run over a guy, and there's again great scene with all the conflicting ideals, and there's logic, and there's intoxication, and there's just franticness, and how they all through that still decided they wouldn't tell anybody. They just go into the next summer without even touching it. I don't know, what do we feel like that decision was, and could we do the same thing? Would we handle it different?
See, and you brought up an interesting point because it's hard to say exactly how we would react.
Right.
But what I keep thinking about is they had a whole year to think it over.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like once the guy like woke up, because he wakes up before they toss him off the dock, that's probably when I would have been like, nope, I'm out, guys. Like, this guy's obviously not dead, so we cannot continue with this plan. But for some reason they do anyway, and they're like, he's probably dead. That being said,
yeah.
even once you think like he's probably dead at that point, I fully think they had a whole year to think about it. One of them, like, in most likelihood, one of them would have come to their senses and said something to somebody. Like,
Right.
It's really kind of like if I were in that situation and somehow I agreed to not say anything I probably would have caved after a very small amount of time, and I would have been like, what have we done? Like, I gotta tell somebody. I don't care if I go to prison. Like, I'll take the fall for this. Nobody else has to be involved. But like, yeah, like, justice has to be served for this guy. So in terms of that decision, I can't necessarily say that I would fall in line with that. So I think no, I would avoid that decision. I would end up telling somebody about it.
Yeah, I think out of the get-go, I agree with you. Plus, like, how many promises I've broken since high school. Like, how many friends you're like, I'll see ya, we'll keep in touch, and it just doesn't happen at all.
Especially in the context of this movie where they're friends who aren't even friends after, like they said, none of them spoke to each other again after that
Since
summer.
then, yeah, like where's the loyalty at that point? I feel like after a month minimum or maximum,
After
I'd be
being
like,
away from them for like a month, I'd be like, yeah, screw it.
all right, we gotta.
We made some bad choices, fam.
Holy fetch, yeah. So out the gate, I mean, maybe would have avoided a tragic collision with the man on the road. But assuming we did make that decision and the events ensued.
Well, and to be fair to the movie, let's assume that we did hit the guy with the car.
Of course, yeah.
Because honestly, I don't think I would have hit a guy with a car while driving somewhat intoxicated as a high schooler, because I didn't have any alcohol in my life until I was much older.
Yeah.
But just to, like,
assuming
sure.
that is a given that we hit the guy.
Just to assume there's an argument. We hit a guy.
We can't avoid that.
I mean, it's kind of like, when you have a slumber party and it's like, you have to answer this or that. You have to be in that situation.
It's like this election.
From all the slumber parties I've been to, yeah, I know.
Yeah, you're like, yes, the many that I've been to. I'm going to shock the world. I'm going to stick with the decision. I'm just kidding. No.
I'm doubling down. I'd kill everyone else in the car.
I'd make sure. I'd bring a lot of lime. Well, I think you guys brought up some really good points. I think as well, like, I don't know that first of all, wrong to do it. But second of all, like,
let's throw that out there.
Like,
disclaimer.
Just as a disclaimer, yes.
Let's be clear about this. They're in the wrong.
We don't condone manslaughter.
Yeah, definitely don't slay a man or woman, them, whoever it may be.
He or she.
Right. But yeah, I don't think that I have enough faith in my not getting caught for murder skills to just be like,
No, it'll probably be fine. Yeah. Tyler will just take him out and there won't be any repercussions and my car will just be fine. No worries.
So yeah, I'd probably say it'd probably be a no for me. Yeah. Mean, like, are your friends really your friends if they're wanting you to, like, be an accessory to murder and just kind of go all the way with it?
One chokes you over your car. Like, after that, I'm like, screw that. I'm going to police
freaking
right now.
Say it. Take it to your grave.
Not surprised she broke up with Freddie Prinze Jr. He just watched her get choked out.
I watched her stupid.
Babe,
Guys, calm down.
Come on.
Stop. Yeah. But anyway, that's...
After that, though, so the deaths that ensue, like, I mean, touching on Max's death, pretty hard to avoid. Like, you don't really see
not
it coming.
even aware.
He's just messing around with some crabs.
Yeah. I don't know. It's unclear, like, why he's dead other than they needed a bloody death in the movie.
Yeah,
like,
why the killer
it's
got him.
kind
Why
of
Max.
weird to kill him.
He was there, I guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess he showed up that night.
He drove and
maybe
could
the
have seen something.
Maybe the killer blames him because, like, you should have investigated more. Something shady obviously happened.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch, though,
maybe
for sure.
His subconscious had heard him pull up in the truck. I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt like he was pretty much out cold, so I don't really see why that was a needful death. But,
yeah.
Or any
I
of
don't
the
know,
deaths.
Like, him getting the hook through the jaw, Ryan Philippe getting friggin' hit by his own car.
Yeah.
I don't think you could avoid either of those.
No, it's pretty, no matter how smart you are.
He's got the element of surprise for sure.
Yeah, for both of those, like, it's very unclear, like, how far this guy is going to go, so he's got the element of surprise on his side.
One thing that, I mean, he's got the element of surprise, but he also warns them, through a note or whatever. He always leaves something, so they're like, oh, there could be something happens, and then he does it. So maybe if he didn't do that, he'd almost have more of an advantage than if you were looking over your shoulder everywhere you go because of that.
Well, but the thing is, neither of them were looking over their shoulders. Like, Ryan Philippe was sure that Max had done it, and he thought that he'd straightened Max out. Even, like, when he was in the car, he thought it was Max.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like the element of surprise we can say applies to him just as much.
That's fair. Yeah, that's
Sure.
fair.
Yeah, but
I guess other deaths not
to
as
your
much.
point
but
later
those
on in
two.
the movie, yeah, he does.
Yeah, there's plenty of deaths in
Draw
this movie that
attention.
could have been avoided by, locking a door.
Owning a gun. I don't know.
Sarah Michelle Gellar could have avoided a haircut by, locking her door.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, So, yeah, I mean, after him getting hit by a car, which he survives,
Yeah.
and Max's death, there's really only, like, the two more deaths, which is Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Philippe. Oh, and Elsa.
And Elsa.
Yeah.
And yeah, Elsa would have been fine if she had locked the doors. Sarah
Yeah.
Michelle Gellar would have been fine if Elsa had locked the doors.
Also, if people would just start believing other people, especially in the group where they're like, they know somebody's trying to kill them, and they're like, there's a dead body. Yeah, right. There's
Yeah.
a dead body.
And like I said earlier, you could have figured out way earlier that Ben Willis was the killer.
Yep.
Like, it takes them way too much time to figure that out.
Yeah, too much time in the movie. I mean, after the things start flowing, they're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now we
Wait.
make all these connections. and-
Hold on. Further criticism.
All right, let's hear it. Let's go.
Ding ding.
I'm just putting this
Kick it
together.
while it's down.
I'm just putting this together. When Sarah Michelle Gellar gets to the store her family owns, and Elsa is inside, like, for the night, the front door is locked, but then moments later, the back door is unlocked for the fisherman to get in. What kind of store is
Yeah,
Elsa running
true.
that you lock the front door before you lock the back door?
There's-
Almost every establishment I've worked in, the back door is locked at all times, and it's the front door you lock.
And also, because she tried a couple doors, if I remember. She went through the front door and then... Maybe I'm getting this a little mixed up, but did she try a couple doors that were locked, but then there was one door that wasn't? Am I getting that?
Or I think she ended up just running out and she saw that it was her family store and she's like, oh, sweet, like, and there's somebody in there.
Well, and then she went in, but I'm saying when she was trying to leave, she tried a couple
Oh,
doors.
that's true.
She did try a couple doors that were locked before she, like, jumped in, like, the dumbwaiter or whatever. that
Right,
was.
yeah, she
Yeah.
couldn't leave the building, so I feel like every door was locked except for
So
the
what is
fetching one door.
So she left the back door. I guess maybe she was leaving that way.
Maybe, but
I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like that's just.
But
kinda
again,
sketchy.
her death could have been avoided if she had locked the door, or if she had just moved at like a speed. Like her sister comes in screaming at her that she's in danger and she needs her to lock up the store, and then Elsa is like doop 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 doop, doop taking her time relocking the front door before slowly walking to the back door to lock it.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating thing through that whole sequence, even though, again, that's the biggest success of the movie, in my opinion, is that sequence is
Yeah.
nobody listened to
Spectacular.
her. She was screaming
Yes.
at the audience, screaming at the police officer, all these people, and they're just like, huh? Like turning around super slowly, and then they get killed or whatever.
What?
Like nobody
or
takes
like
her
the
seriously.
audience that like weirdly like holds her down.
Yeah,
Oh
they're
my
like, oh,
gosh,
she's
yeah.
crazy. Let's grab her.
She's
Stop
having,
that woman.
She's having an episode. Put hands on her.
Oh, I know, right?
And so almost it's not her fault. Like she was screaming, yelling, kicking. She was doing a good job.
She was
I guess.
acting naturally.
Her,
Yeah.
in the end, the death is her fault.
Yeah,
Or at
yeah.
least the screenwriter's fault. Because she stops and turns around
Fair.
2 different times to make sure she isn't being followed, instead of running into the parade.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have... so, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm going to go ahead and say... Like, everything that happens after Ryan Philippe gets hit by a car is totally avoidable death-wise.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't watch the show from the balcony.
Yeah.
Watch it down in the audience among other people.
Like a regular.
Yeah, and don't even look behind you, you know? Don't make glances. Just stare at the boring show.
Or better yet, again, life saved by a locked door. When you go up in the balcony, lock the door behind you.
There you go.
Do that. If you're the police officer, believe the girl who's hysterically screaming about being stalked by somebody.
He didn't even believe the dude
Yes.
existed almost. What was the
Ben
dude's
who?
name? Yeah, that's right.
No, it was
Oh yeah, she's like, he killed Barry.
Barry
who?
Barry who?
Like Barry, their famous quarterback, high school
Town
quarterback, doesn't
star.
exist.
What, Barry? Your imaginary friend, Barry? No, the guy that went to high school and graduated last year.
The guy that exists.
I know, right?
So there's her death. Is there
Um,
death after that?
I think
No,
that's-
actually, I
No,
think
that
that's
is.
it.
Yeah,
Just
because
that
the last two survive. Yeah.
Because after her death, the killer like chases Jennifer Love Hewitt to the docks where she runs into Ray.
Thinks he's the killer.
Thinks he's the killer for out
Runs
of
away from
nowhere. By the
him.
way, she's figured it out.
Yeah.
she figured out that it's Ben Willis, but then for 3 seconds goes, never mind, it's Ray.
Yeah, he stiff-armed him, the
Oh,
killer.
yeah.
He just, like, puts his arm out. He's knocked out, and
I
then,
know.
I don't know, he pretends to be a nice guy, gets her on the
Easy,
boat.
child.
In a very old sea doggy way. And I'm like, that's not how a normal person would talk. It's just like,
Easy,
hey, you need some
child.
help?
Easy. Go on the boat. I will be there in a moment.
By the way, why does she go along with that?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
Like,
know,
if
it
I'm
makes
that,
no
in that
sense.
situation, I'm like, all right, so I'm leaving the docks.
So I'm just gonna, go back to land.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Yep.
Because either some guy named Ben Willis or my ex-boyfriend is a killer, and I don't want to be here in case I run into either of them.
Right.
And I think, so the hardest, I mean, at the very end scene with the ship, and she's on it, and then the saving the day, what's his
Freaking
name?
Ray.
Ray, yeah, Ray
Ray.
saves the day. Like, I don't know.
FPJ comes in at the end strong, like
The
a
stuff he
superhero.
does, I gotta be honest, I don't think I could do that. Like,
I don't know if I could do that, to be honest with you,
climbing,
man.
even climbing into the ship, just like, I don't know.
Well, to be fair, you would have the advantage of you had been working on a fishing boat
Oh,
for a
that's true.
year
Fair.
up to this.
Yeah, that's true. You'd
That
probably
plays
be-
in heavily to like how he turns the tide on the boat is that he knows how the boat works
Yeah.
and he can navigate it.
That's true.
He's been spending time on the water, so
And
you have a plus 10 advantage there. I
There
don't
you
know,
go.
whatever.
Plus 10. Upgrade.
Then there's some hand-to-hand combat.
Dude, I know,
There's
and he-
some
He's like going
stands
at
his
it.
ground for a good few minutes.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, so this is one of the rare movies where the final boy and final girl both survive
Both
the movie.
survive, yeah.
I know, right?
And I'm actually going to say something, and I really hope the internet doesn't hate me for this, but I think this is a movie where I'd be prouder if I was the final boy in this movie than the final girl. Because honestly, like, he is a little bit lucky he survived,
Yeah.
but it's only because she almost got him killed
She
like 3
yells
times.
whatever, Ray, no, or something
Ray!
like
She
that.
keeps
Distracting.
yelling. She keeps distracting the guy.
What? He
I know.
kicks him off the boat.
He gets freaking judo chopped off the boat because she screams Ray, and he turns to look at her
While he's you
While
made
he's-
the
While
point.
he's-
While he's successful in his
while
hand-to-hand
he's
combat.
successfully fighting the fisherman.
It's not like she's like warning him or something.
I
She's
know,
just
right?
saying it. Ray, you're here.
Ray. What?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us, would be in agreement. I mean, that's kind of how it was directed and written, so that's kind of... In my opinion, I feel like Ray, the final boy, is the most, in that situation, is the most, like, practical in a sense, and he's using his mind and his knowledge the most, so it would make sense for me personally to be, like, rather be him than Jennifer Love Hewitt, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. And no disrespect to her, she's fairly resourceful.
No, for
like,
sure.
They played the cat and
she-
mouse game for a good while.
No.
Yeah, on a boat too, which
Yeah.
is like,
Impressive.
yeah, like most final girls end up doing the cat and mouse thing, like in a summer camp where there are like miles and miles of woods around them for her to hide in.
Right.
So like the fact that she's in a confined space on this boat and she evades him for a good long while.
Yeah.
Like,
Still good.
yeah, like props to her. Obviously, like she wouldn't have survived without Ray, and Ray. You know what? Ray would have survived without her. So like.
Yeah,
They were both very independent in that. They didn't.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think
No, she would have been dead without Ray. Is
Well,
the problem.
at the end, yeah.
yeah, which to me because it's like she's pretty resourceful and she's got a good head on her shoulders until she gets on the boat, and then it's like, well, okay, this is weird. This is not the same person. I
Yeah, it
guess.
feels a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, she's pretty resourceful. She does pretty well for herself.
Yeah.
It's just the killer knows the boat better than she does.
And that
because
makes
it's
sense,
his boat. So
Yeah.
he just kind of gets the one up on her, but luckily Ray can step in and save her.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the end, what happens? That he gets up in the pulley, the hand gets ripped off, he
Oh, yeah.
flings into the
in
ocean.
A way, it's kind of luck that they both survived because he
Yeah.
like throws
Yeah.
up his hand to stab down with a hook, and he accidentally gets it caught in like some of the rigging, and it
rigging,
like
yeah.
rips off his hand.
And at that point, they're just watching it happen. They're not really doing
Whoa.
anything about it. He gets flung into the ocean.
Yeah.
Very end, jumps at her in the shower, but
Yeah.
yeah, they get to
Or
hold each other's
did he?
arms.
I mean, if there's a sequel, which there is,
If there,
Jennifer
who
Love-
knows?
and
Is
if
there
Jennifer
sequel?
Love Hewitt is the star, which she is, like
chances are.
if that was him jumping at her in the shower, he did a pretty piss poor job of finishing it.
Obviously she didn't get killed in that. It almost felt like an after credit scene, but it was still before the credits.
Well, that's very much in the style of just slasher movies. A lot of slasher movies had that, where it's like the final girl got away. No, she didn't.
No, there's the killer's still there.
He's there. I know. Still in his Long John Silver costume and some college female showers. Yeah.
After she gets off the phone with Ray, which is like
right.
so hilariously one-sided.
Cheesy and like gross after a couple of years of dating Cindy in high school, and it's still super like, ew, dirty talk.
I mean, like, Ray definitely has a little bit of a libido, though. Like, a cringy libido, too, because, like, his first line of the movie is like...
What are you wearing?
His, like, first line of the movie is, like, talking about Sarah Michelle Gellar, so not his girlfriend. His first line of the movie is talking about not his girlfriend's boo.
That was him saying that. Is that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the other guy.
Right? No, it was
That's
him.
Screwed up. She's sitting right there too.
Broski.
Then she punches him all like lovingly, like
boys will be boys.
Then at the
Late
end, she's like on the phone with him, and it's like a hilarious one-sided telephone call of like, well, Ray, like now that I'm in college and like you're doing so well for yourself, we're gonna love each other forever. A towel. Why do you ask? Ray, you're so bad. Like, don't
She's
worry.
still like,
Ray, I'm gonna be
secretly
home.
just a
What is it?
perv.
What is it? She says she's like, I'm gonna be home soon, and you can tear into me.
Yeah,
Like,
you can
and I'm
ravage
like-
me or something.
Yeah, I know.
Weird
I'm
verb.
like, what is he, a Viking? Jeez.
It's like very cheesy dialogue, and Lancet freaking killed me because we were talking about how like obviously like a big like instigating incident or whatever is like the fact that they get notes. They get like Jennifer Love Hewitt gets a note that says, "I know what you did last summer," and we're looking at the font of the note and we're like, "This is not threatening. Like this is this would be in Word documents as like a really friendly option." And Lansing totally called it at the end.
Yeah.
Because right before she gets in the shower, there's another note like left on the bench for her. And he's like, this is going to be like an invitation to like an end of year party. And then it was.
I know. It's like,
just called
Julie, I'd like to invite you.
to a pool party.
the same font.
I know.
It was
the
a
same
great,
thing.
the same font, which I loved, like the self-awareness of that and the fake out right there at the end.
Yeah.
Before like he's actually in the shower.
Shaboinga.
The whole movie, I was like, yeah, that font, I don't know about it, but then I guess it kind of came explained for a cheap
Wait, but
joke,
did he want to invite her to a pool party?
Maybe he just
Who
wants
knows?
to come to a pool party. All right, well, kind of to wrap things up, what we're going to do is establish a couple things. If we, as Adam, Luke, and Lanson, as we now are,
Three Musketeers,
would make final boy status or final girl status, meaning would we be the final chick that makes it out alive by the skin of her teeth through maybe luck, maybe help, maybe her own
our own wits.
in many cases, and the final boy who makes it almost to the end, but then normally I guess the cliche is gets killed at the end so she can leave, sacrificing himself. I don't know, depends, but
However it goes.
so first off, would we make
we have the silver status? Would we get silver and be the final boy, or would we go for the gold and be the final girl?
That is what we find out here at this podcast. So first off, do we think we would make, again, as we are now, as the people we are, would we make final boy status in this movie?
Yeah, easy. I mean, like, final boy just means like we're competent enough to make it to the end. Like we don't have to survive.
Yeah.
I think this is a movie where it's like easy to get final boy status. Like it's a total gimme. There's barely anything you would have to do.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, think about like how Ray got final boy status. He got it by barely being in the second act of the movie.
I know.
Yeah.
Just being on the boat.
Just being on his boat.
Just doing his fisherman things. Yeah, it's true. If you just don't care that much, you'll mind your own fetching business.
Stay in your lane. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I feel like just being practical and not having to have, I guess Ray did have superhero qualities, but you don't really have to have those, to be able to make it to the final boy status for this movie in particular. So I would say that I could make it to at least that. I could at least get the silver medal.
Yeah. That's good. I'm kind of there with you. I feel like just to be present, and I don't know.
We'd win the silver medal for Kenya.
That's right.
That's what this is. Did I get confused? That's what this is about, right?
Yes,
correct.
Final boy status is
In
the
the
Olympic
Olympics.
Games that we are representing the homeland of Kenya. It's a beautiful country.
We're not from, but we're proud to represent.
Yeah, like hey, like Kenyans are dope. Kenya is awesome.
Big
so.
fan. Big fan.
Yeah, for sure.
Shout out to the entire country of Kenya.
Hey, shout out to Kenya. We love you.
For a second, I thought you were going to say continent of Kenya, and I was going to be
The
like,
entire
oh!
continent, the entire state of Kenya.
Jeez.
Just be so
The
incorrect.
entire territory.
Oh. Man, we got to work on the geography terms, guys.
Could we make final girl status in this movie? Could we survive the killer?
Oh, man. Again, assuming that we hit the guy with the car.
Yeah. That is a given.
Yeah, I feel like
How much of a given are we into? Like, are we giving... So, we hit the guy with the car. Are we also giving into the fact that we made the oath and we kept it for a whole year?
Yeah, I'd say up to that point where the movie actually gets into its horrorness, that's all a given.
So we can diverge from, like, the time we receive the note.
Yeah, let's say that.
Okay.
Here's where I'm coming from. I think if you receive the note at some point, yeah, you can lock doors, but he's coming for you. You know, like I think he'll find you, and at some point you're gonna have to come face to face with the guy at the hook. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I would survive that because I'm not
Okay.
super hand-to-hand combat like Ray is. I don't think. I mean, I don't have a lot of
You're no FPJ.
running ability. I don't think I could keep up the pace like the chick's
Sarah
name.
Michelle Gellar.
Her chasing
I'm not-
is long, and she does
Yeah.
a lot of running.
She's
so
got-
That's some
fair.
cardio.
There's
Doesn't
a-
really have time to catch her breath.
I don't have that cardio ability. I feel like I would get killed if he appeared in my room. I would just there's nothing I could do at that point. I think, and I think if you receive that note, it would unless you guys have an argument against it. I think it'd be hard to avoid a confrontation.
I guess if like it came down to, I couldn't outrun him, I couldn't outsmart him, and it came down to me and him fighting hand to hand. No, I could not survive that.
Sure.
But I'm also inclined to think that the moment I receive a note, I'm like, screw all y'all. We haven't talked in a year anyway.
Go to the
I'm
police.
taking this to the cops.
Okay.
And like,
Fair.
I don't know if I already knew that like David Egan was probably the guy that I killed. Like,
You'd look into it.
yeah, like I said, ultimately it doesn't take that much to figure out that the actual killer is Ben Willis.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you got the police involved earlier, it probably would have come out earlier. You know what I mean? Where like, with the threatening note and everything and all of this, like maybe Anne Heche would have seen that on the news and been like, oh shoot, like I have a note like that as well.
That's true. If it became public and
Sure.
the cops got involved, it would
Yeah.
totally change it.
So that's like, yeah, that's just one of those things where like I would diverge quickly because I'd be like, you know what, like somebody is like getting after me about this and I'm pretty guilty about it anyway. I have no more loyalty to these guys. So yeah, like let me get the cops involved. And furthermore, like I said, you could avoid a lot of this like by listening to Sarah Michelle Gellar and locking the doors. Like I hate to like keep beating that drum, but it's like, so I would say if it came down to me fighting him one-on-one in a confrontation, I would say no, but I am not convinced it would ever need to get to that
Yeah.
point.
You feel like you could do enough beforehand
I
to
feel
avoid
like I
that.
could get enough. I feel like I could do enough before then to survive. So you're being very like hard on yourself about this. I'm gonna go in the opposite direction and say, yeah, I could get final girl status.
Good for you.
Nice.
Luke can do it,
You
man.
got the gold, man. At least one of us got the gold.
Yeah, well, let's hear what Lanson has to say. Maybe Lanson's got it.
Lanson apparently doesn't have confidence in
Yeah,
himself.
I don't know. I think it's hard. In some sense, I do understand where you come from, Luke. As far as like, I personally would probably, again, I don't have a lot of faith in my getting away with murder skills, so I'd just be like, hey, man, here's what happened.
Here's
Cops,
everything.
Here's what's up,
Hey,
man.
come here. I gotta tell you.
So
Come
worst
close.
case scenario, I could be in jail and he couldn't get to me. So there you go. Maybe I can survive that way.
You would be living.
I know. It's like, what are
Maybe
you
you
gonna do?
wouldn't
I'm
win.
already in a prison. Anyway, And then maybe I'd be a hardened criminal, so when he came to visit me, I'd be like, tables have turned, my dude. I got a hook, too.
Doing
Like
some
Michael
lifting.
Myers doing all those push-ups in the can. All them sit-ups so you can chase those big brain girls.
Just working. Jeez. Okay, that's a whole nother thing. I'm just going to go on a tangent here, like with Michael Myers. I'm like, did they just let that guy lift in prison? They're just like,
This
he's
won't bite us in
mentally
the butt.
unstable, and he's got like some superhuman attributes. Let's let him just get jacked. He's just
Nothing
bending
wrong.
bars. If the bar ain't bending, you're just pretending. Mask on and everything. Snorting pre-workout.
Rubbing it on his gums.
So
Yeah.
really, it's the institutions.
So
They give him the mask to work out. That's the best part. The rest of the day, he can't have it, but for his workouts.
hey, man, we're not monsters. It's workout time, boys. Time to kill the weight.
If it helps, it helps.
Yeah, so I'm going to go a different route than everybody and just say I would get really hard in prison because I would go to prison because I was so truthful, and I would just make myself into a living weapon and like shiv him with a piece of soap that I made into a shiv. And,
So you would be Laurie Strode in the new Halloween.
dude, yeah,
Having spent the entire
on the
time
inside.
preparing for him to
I know,
come back.
just have like a pillowcase full of batteries or some crap like that. Yeah, so...
Then you'd kill him and just have the taste of blood, and you would become a killer. I mean,
I'm already in prison, so I might
Yeah.
as well. I mean, like, I've gone to prison
a
for
life
killing a
sentence
guy. What are you
already?
gonna do? Give me another life sentence? So, that's that would be my route. I would be the final girl, but at what cost? I'll leave that up to the audience.
that's a great
Final
answer.
girl, but at what cost?
Well, that's it. I think
Yeah.
we decided that. That's I know what you did last summer, and that's pretty. Some of us would survive. I feel like that's pretty good. Couple golds.
Is now the time where we do the little pluggy plug stuff?
Yeah. Let's hear
You
some
checked
pluggy
your
plugs.
paper.
I had to check my paper. I was like, there's no pluggy plug on the paper, but Luke knows.
Oh, well, I would just like to pop in and say that if you liked anything I had to say, you can read lots of things that I say on Twitter. You can find me at Luke Haueter. That's Haueter spelled Haueter, at Luke Haueter. I know the show will be receiving emails through the underqualified idiocracy
Yeah.
thing. So I think that's underqualifiedidiots@gmail.com.
Good.
Yes, that is.
Lanson knows.
Yeah.
So yeah, please send us emails at underqualifiedidiots@gmail.com. If you have trivia you want to tell us about, I know what you did last summer. If there's stuff about the movie you want to bring up that we didn't get to, please let us know. Or even if you just want to say hello or talk about movies that we should talk about
requests.
in the future,
Yeah.
reach out to us, underqualifiedidiots@gmail.com, and me on Twitter. Are you guys on Twitter?
No.
I'm not on Twitter. No.
I'm not. Yep. No.
But check out Luke. He's cool. And
dope.
the other podcasts he does. But stay tuned. We're going to do this. This is the thing. We'll have more episodes coming out.
Yeah.
So I'll just plug this show that we're on. I think it's...
Yeah.
Next week, we'll still know what you did last summer.
Ooh.
Is that
Well,
a
we're
hint
gonna-
of what it's going to be?
Oh shoot! I'm gonna reveal it. We're gonna watch the second one in the series,
shoot.
and we're gonna talk about it. So best be ready.
It's just barely dawning on me that Adam was plugging this show in the plug section of the show. He's like, "Well, you could watch this show. You could
I don't-
listen to this show."
If
I
you
don't
made
have
it
any
this,
other crap going on.
jeez, I mean, if you
I
made
got nothing else in my life.
Catch me at Weber State University studying for classes.
catch me on that outside.
Catch me.
Yeah. Yeah. So everybody, stay healthy, stay safe. Yeah. If you like the show, keep listening. We're happy to do this. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For everybody that supported us, thank you very much. Yeah, that's it for me.
Done. Yeah. Good night.
Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.
Out.
This has been an Underqualified Idiocracy media production, produced by Lanson Lappin, Adam Bone, and Luke Haueter. Theme music for the episode was written by Rachel Robison. You can hear more of Rachel's music at rachelrobinsonmusic.com. You can also find her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at Robel Racheson. Artwork for the YouTube version of this podcast was created by Trinity Rodriguez. You can follow her on Twitter by searching at InstrinBaby to see more of her work. This podcast was recorded in underqualified studios and edited by Luke Haueter, with special thanks to Mike Fuchs for providing audio assistance. The illustrious voice acting providing the intro and outro of this episode is Shane Alvey of the Paradox Files voice acting. You can explore more of his work on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching @The Paradox Files.